I've already seen one of the chamber forums or any of that. You want one, two? Okay, so I'm not repeating myself again and again. So my name is Greg Luhman. I've been a citizen here in Sheridan since 1994. I grew up on a family farm in Minnesota, 5th generation. My parents just actually moved this way a year and a half ago after selling the farm, because the family farm is a thing of the past back there. All of the bigger conglomerate type farming communities have kind of taken over the small farmer. Plus my dad's 85, so that had something to do with him not wanting to be out there walking fence anymore. So I grew up in a small community of 1,200 people. I went to a junior college, got my associate's degree, and went on to Gustavus Adolphus College in Minnesota, which is a private liberal arts school that is Lutheran based. I played sports in college, played football all 4 years, and also did track 2 years. And then I started coaching and working at the college itself. I did security work for the college in the residence halls, and then worked on to be a student activity advisor. And then I taught majors classes in physical and health education, which my degree was in. So I started teaching at the college. Actually, I subbed for about 6 months. I don't know if anybody's ever sub-taught before, but you're at the hands of the school that you go to. And so every morning you're waiting for that call at 6 a.m. It taught me a lot about patience and having to get up that time every morning. So then I actually, after working at the college, I started testing for firefighting jobs, and tested in Denver with 1,500 people, tested in Billings with about 400 people, and then I tested in Sheridan too. And I was working in Yellowstone at the time. I did my summers because I was at the college. I had my work schedule was from usually mid-September until like 1st of June when the kids graduated. So I had my summers off. So I always went west to Yellowstone and worked for the Canteen Corporation that was in charge of Yellowstone. So I always had a love of coming out west. Plus I had an uncle that lived up in Shepherd, Montana. So we always did every other summer we went out west with my family. So that was kind of my connection to the area up here. Got hired on at the fire department. Started getting involved in the community right away with, I'm a member of Emmanuel Lutheran Church. I was on the original school board for starting up the Martin Luther Grammar School. I have also been on Sheridan Public Arts, and just joined the museum board, and have been Sheridan Sharks. I don't know if anybody has a swimmer, but I was the board president of Sheridan Sharks for a year. Just kind of working through my experience and giving back to the community that I love. And I put in 26 and a half years with the fire department, ending as a captain, and retired not this last June, but last year. And I have a business that I've had with a retired captain from the department since 2006, which is a fire extinguisher business and hood system. Just the commercial cooking hood system, we service those as well. Actually, we did your extinguishers, but it's been a while, I think. So
How they do.
yeah, but yeah, so I'm still doing that business because my pension is not enough to sustain me for till I finally hit. My business partner just hit 66 and a half, so he's all happy and wants to get out of the business. So I'm still a little too young for that. But other than that, I'm married to Shelly, my beautiful wife, and we have 4 sons between us. I have 2 from a previous marriage, and she has 2 from a previous marriage. So, anything else you'd like to know? Okay. Questions?
Yeah, my name's Tom. Why city council? Why would you want to run for city council, especially at a time so pivotal
in Sheridan right now with so many people coming from out of town.
That's exactly why, for me, is all the people that are coming into the community. And to me, working for the city in the capacity I did, I've worked within the city and the inner workings of the city, and have observed those relationships with the administration all the way down to my coworkers throughout the city. So I feel like I know the city pretty well. The amount of people moving into the community, to be honest with you, it's like, we're not gonna be able to stop that. People say we gotta keep them from moving here. You can't keep them from moving here. But what you do need to do is keep reminding them of why they moved here. It's because of the culture and the traditions and the feel of Sheridan as a community. And partly why I moved here. When I tested, the day I tested, I went down to the Silver Spur and had breakfast the morning. I arrived at 3 a.m. in the morning, slept at the fairgrounds, came down to Silver Spur, had breakfast, and the gal came up to me and she's like, "I'll be right with you, hun." And then a minute later she came back, "Okay, what do you have, sweetie?" And I'm just like, yeah, that's what I left in Minnesota, that same family-ish feel. And that's what I think we need to keep reminding everybody of. Why did you move here? It's because of that. It wasn't to change that, it was to maintain that. Okay? And to just enhance it, in my book. So that's why I'm running. I want to maintain that culture. And then also give back, the old saying, but it is to give back. I've never been one to sit back and then, I think if you're complaining and you're sitting there, you might feel better, but you're not doing anything about it. So to me, I'm trying to get onto council so I can have an effect on how this community goes, where we go. So, Miss Sharon, I didn't even see you until just now. So, okay, another question? Or did that answer it, Tom?
Oh, yeah, it did.
Okay.
I'm sure there'll be a follow-up too.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay.
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth, but following that, what's your view on development here?
I think conscientious development has to be done. I think there's an emphasis right now when, I think back 20 years ago, and there was a lot of emphasis on, we got to get infrastructure in for the industrial development of Sheridan. So that north end just got, they put in all that infrastructure and, well, okay, it took off. Didn't really agree with doing it for them as businesses. I thought it should be emphasized more on the community as a whole. But now we're at that point where we don't have that workforce here in Sheridan. So I'm thinking, in my feel on this is that we start focusing on the building of an infrastructure for development of residential properties. And that could be as simple as, if it's 4 homes or 4 rentals, whatever it is, that's 4 more people that can stay here and work in this community. If we don't do those, and it's not a detriment to the feel of the city and the feel of the culture and everything for Sheridan, we should be doing it and getting those people here so that they can work. Because the only way we're going to start bringing prices down within the market the way it is right now is to get more availability of housing. And I know that's not going in the direction people want, but people love this place and they come here. It's keeping them from changing it and what we're doing right now.
Well, because we're some of the new folks, but there's a reason why we came here. We came from a small community, and we like the small community feel. So we see all this development, and it's like, holy cow, what have we got ourselves into? So I mean, I understand growth is important, but on the other hand, traffic and crime and drugs is something that potentially, comes with growth.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on the potential. I'd almost say it's going to be coming. And it's funny because I've talked to some people about that. I went to Seattle 10 years ago and went family cruise. You know, my parents had their 60th wedding anniversary and we all went on a cruise. I thought Seattle was an amazing city. It was clean. You could go, you know, Space Needle, we walked to the Space Needle, we walked to Pike's Market, we did all that. And I was like, man, I can't wait to get back here. My wife and I just went there 3 weeks ago.
Sorry.
Yeah. It was scary. I was like, how can a place change so much in so short of a time? And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, we've got to be careful and we need to have a plan to address that here, because a lot of what's happening there is because they're handcuffing the police officers and the community, and they're not dealing with the underlying situations that are causing it. What those are specifically, I'm not positive, but when you start providing certain needs to people and they start taking advantage of it, and we've seen this with COVID, I'm all for taking care of people and everything, but when you stop doing the work and everything and you start relying on that instead of going back, I feel we need to adjust it and change the direction of it. I have already talked to one other firefighter from Seattle that moved here, and he didn't retire, he left there because of what was going on. And he wants to join our fire department the next time we test. And he said, don't be surprised, the drug thing is already here. He goes, I've already had situations where I've seen people passed out, and the local law enforcement may not identify it, but he goes, that's what it is. He goes, so there needs to be a plan on how to address that and not allow it to get out of hand. We're already seeing the effects of it. Like you said, the traffic, you know, well, we're gonna have to start working on plans to allow flow, you know, and you can't reverse it. You know, you look at Jackson, when I was working in Yellowstone, I hate to say the J word, but they were dealing with the same stuff we're dealing actually at an elevated level back then, and that was 30 years ago, and it's even worse now. So how do we get ahead of that? We start communicating with them, what worked for you, what didn't. Start working with the county, what can we do to increase the housing and try and make this a better place that we can maintain the culture that's here. So to me, it's all about communication and working towards common goals. So.
Hey Greg, Harry Pollock, what are 3 positive things with city council and 3 negative things with city council as you see it?
3 positive things. I think the diversity right now with the city councilors is, it's positive in a way that you're getting some viewpoints from different individuals on the different aspects of the city. I like the administration right now with Stu as being part of the underlying structure of the city. I think Mr. McCray has done a really good job of seeing the needs of the city and trying to direct and incorporate ideas into where we should be going. The other thing that I see that I really like right now is that the city council is much more informed now than I believe they were 10 years ago. They're getting the information before meetings, even sometimes a week before. Whereas in the past, it was like a lot of it was handed out the night before. I think that's a positive direction, and opening up communication. I can remember when, like you spoke the other night, under the previous administrations, you couldn't speak until the end of the night when the topic was already gone. And you're speaking on something that happened over an hour ago. So I think that has improved. One of the things that I think needs to improve with the city council is the communication with the employees of the city. I don't believe that's there. I don't believe, I know Councilman Linden would, he would come to the fire department whenever we had activities and everything. And we would see him occasionally, but other council people, we never saw him. But yet they're making decisions that affect the second largest employer in the city of Sheridan. You know, so I really feel that communication, if I as an employee for the fire department wanted to see who was making the decisions on my position in my life, not only the officers, but the other people within the city. That open communication and knowing, an employee that knows that they're cared for is much more productive than an employee that feels uncared for, plain and simple. So I would like to open up that communication. Another thing that I don't think is going well is the building department. I don't believe sending our plans reviews off to a gentleman in Tennessee to be reviewed and then sent back is a good practice. The reason that's not being done here is because they didn't fill those positions. Yes, money. And they didn't want the fire department making decisions anymore. And this, can we keep this between us? Because we'll probably get about this.
Everybody get
It's
your
good to
recorder.
say
Yeah.
that. It is being recorded, so just full
Okay.
disclosure.
But I believe the fire department should be doing code enforcement. Who knows the operations of the city better than the city employees? Those same employees know how things are done here and operated with the fire department, what our goals are, what are our engines carrying, all of that. Just knowing a code does not mean you know how to incorporate it into our community, okay? And when I saw that he had 50, probably 45 or 50 code certifications, and I'm thinking I had 3 of them, and it was a constant battle to keep them. And I'm like, well, how the heck is he keeping 50? So I would like to see that code enforcement brought back into the city, and that in turn will turn around the turnaround for people doing plans reviews and corrections to those plans reviews, and all of that would be much quicker than I'm sure it is right now. So that's another area I'd like to see change, is local code enforcement. The last one, as far as the city council goes, trying to think. I just think the decisions that they make need to be fiscally responsible. But when you are providing funds to organizations, I think that organization also has some responsibility back to the city for the funds that they provide, which means that the city should have some say in what those funds are going towards. Okay, so if we're gonna donate to the Second Chance Cat shelter, then it should be stipulated kind of what those funds can go towards. Kind of like they do with us every day when they send us money from the government. There's certain stipulations on there. You can't use it for wages. You can't use it for this. I think that's part of what we need to do with that as well. So, does that answer?
It does, thank you.
You want to follow up?
I do actually, since you brought up the Second Chance Cat Shelter, as you know, I was there and spoke Monday night, and I let the council know that there was 2 articles in the state's constitution that prevents them from giving monies to nonprofits, such as the Second Chance Cat Shelter. You kind of answered the question. Do you feel they were in their right, even though they said that they had spoken to their city attorney, who wasn't there Monday night, and gave them and who had already given them permission to approve the expenditure of $50,000 and $30,000 in January for the same entity?
So one thing that really, if someone is not present at a meeting, I don't believe you can make statements on their behalf. That's plain and simple. That one I did pick out and I'm like, I didn't agree with that. You can't make statements for someone else, especially if it's the city attorney and you're making a statement for them. The second thing is I do believe that they can appropriate those funds if it follows those same parameters that they stated, that it's providing a service. And we could go around, constantly around on this, but the city dog and cat shelter is not able to provide the entire services that are needed for this community for dogs and cats. They are underfunded, understaffed, just like Second Chances. And yeah, you can say, well, let's fund them more. It's a constant battle over how much funds you're gonna give them. I really do believe that what they said about not providing funds again in the future, this is a one-time thing, that it provides a service to the city of Sheridan that I think is invaluable to the community itself. I really do. I've adopted 2 cats myself, my wife and I, from them. It's just one of those, I don't believe this is a recurring thing. I think they have grown so much. I can remember when they were in Sheridan commercials, extra shed in the back. And it was just that one gal providing the service. And that was probably 10 years ago too. They have grown exponentially with their staff and with what they're doing for this community. And I do think they provide a really important service to the community. So.
Thank you.
Are they promoting any spaying and neutering programs?
Yes, they are.
That should be a huge thing.
Yep. And they do that with the strays that they catch and then put into the adoption program. They do spay and neuter. We didn't have a choice with our cat. It was already done. So, our cats.
We were having coffee a couple of weeks ago during the week, and the traffic up and down Main Street with the big trucks, not so much your passenger vehicles, but your delivery trucks coming and going. Is there, it just seemed like the delivery trucks should have alternate routes to protect our tourism dollars. Just a thought, because it was, and I can talk regardless of what's around me. That doesn't seem to be a problem. But anyways, with that being said, some of the women I was with kept saying, God, it's so loud. And noticeably, there was, half a dozen trucks every, 5-10 minutes. And it was like, wow, God, you're right. So, and with us, with Sheridan growing, is Main Street gonna be the artery?
I'm not a traffic expert, obviously.
Okay.
I know, I agree with you on what I get irritated by is the delivery trucks that park right in the middle of the street. And it's like, really? But then I'm thinking, where else are they gonna go? They don't fit down the alleys. I can guarantee that I can barely let my pickup down the alley. So they almost have to deliver in the middle of the street. And I think it's like Sheridan Commercial Company, their deliveries come at all hours of the night. They very rarely have one that's delivered during the day. So I don't know if that's an option for those other delivery services. The food delivery companies and stuff, they're, it might be a timing thing, but I understand that they have to deliver. Now, I think you're also talking about a lot of the construction trucks and everything that are going through town. Is that, I know that's been they've been directed to take different routes now. If you go down Val Vista, it's a constant Mullinax earth moving truck line. And I haven't seen them taking Main Street, but we get a lot of commercial traffic through Main. And I think part of that's, it's a short run and it's through town.
They come down Thurman a lot too.
Yeah, Thurman's getting hit. And what's
Well,
gonna
they
happen?
fly down Thurman, they're gonna kill somebody.
And what's happening to the roads too. If you look at a lot of those high traffic areas, and I think this needs to be addressed with the companies that are doing that constant traffic through town, is what you're doing to the pavement and how we're gonna remedy that when you're finished. Now, if it's finished, because the construction's gonna continue on.
Right.
But, yeah, I was thinking about that, and then, like I said, it's irritating when you're coming up and there's a truck parked right in the middle of Laux, and you're barely enough room to get around it. And then I think about somebody walking out and,
Wasn't that a fire?
yeah, what's that?
Wouldn't that be a fire hazard? How's your truck gonna get? If
Um,
you've got cars parked on both sides, and then he's parked in the middle, there's barely room for a car to go through,
Yeah,
let alone a truck.
if we see that, we take an alternate route. Most of my guys though could maneuver, they're pretty good with it. So, but our big thing is Main Street. If we do end up having a structure fire or whatever on Main Street, we're gonna end up parking across the street. Not in front of we're not looking at closest access necessarily, we're looking at collapse zones and things like that, so that's a different issue, so. But anyway, I don't know what else we could do. I think it's really gonna become an issue next year when they start that construction project downtown. It's gonna bring some things to light on access points for those delivery trucks and everything. And I've been downtown talking to some of the merchants down there just to find out what we can do to make it flow better next year. And my biggest hope is that we don't lose any businesses downtown. But inevitably, it's probably gonna happen. So,
Am I correct to understand that construction on Main Street in the downtown area, isn't that gonna be during the spring and summertime? Where's the height of thank you.
yes, it is. It's going to be spring through the summer. It's gonna be in phases as you go from the north to the south. And obviously it's not gonna be like they'll complete one phase and then start on the next one. It's gonna be like a rolling thing. They'll be removing pavement, they'll be removing the dirt, they'll be removing the infrastructure and replacing it. But those crews will be working in conjunction with each other as they go south. So it's gonna be constantly moving, but they're gonna be closing the one end before they get past a certain point on the other end, if that makes sense.
It does.
I've gone to a couple of the YDOT meetings, and I think it's really, really gonna be important that, and this is something that I was thinking about the other day, is emphasizing to the local community that we need to get downtown and support those businesses during this time as well, and make sure that the signage and everything is there so that you know access points, because there are some businesses you can't use the rear exit or the rear entrance. It's just not possible. And so there's other businesses that they want you to come through to get out to Main Street and go shop. I mean, Sheridan Stationery, for instance, used to always use that as a walkthrough because there's parking behind there. So I think we really need to emphasize those businesses and the signage that's coming along with that. And really, really as a community, we are a community that steps up for people and steps up for people that are in trouble or that have medical issues and they need extra money. It's amazing what this community will do for you. And so this is one of those things to me. This is one of those areas that we need to go and shop downtown and make sure that we're really, really trying to pull them through. And we showed we'll do it in the pandemic. I talked to a lot of the business owners down there and they said, actually they had sometimes better years than in most years. And it was because the local community was coming down and making sure they were coming down and shopping. downtown. So I'm sure that's not 100% across the board, but I think it's important.
So do you support the use of eminent domain by the city? And if so, why? And if not, why?
Support eminent, I don't think I've ever supported eminent domain. I just, I know it's in the Constitution, and that whole thing about fair compensation and everything is yeah, it's there. I can't think of an instance that it's been used in Sheridan. I don't know if,
I'm not really from here. I saw it used in Denver.
oh.
And I was just wondering your feelings on it.
Yeah, I'm not generally for it unless it's something that is really a significant thing that is gonna affect everyone in this community in a positive way. But I've never, the only circumstances I can remember growing up were when they were putting in power lines and things like that, or interstate. Because when I was growing up, I-90 stopped at the end of town when we going north, and I can remember those days. It stopped at Manchester, if I remember right. But they had to do that eminent domain basically to put the interstate in. I think we got enough interstates right now, so I think it would really have to be something that was really a positive for the entire community, and definitely the compensation needs to be there. But I know it's allowed. I just don't think I've ever seen the city do that or even heard of it at any point. So,
From a more philosophical standpoint, what are the main priorities of a city government? What should city administrators, what should city councilors be focused on? What is the job of a city government?
to me, I don't know if you've, this is one thing that I really agree with Stu McCrae on his, the way he's leading the city is he is very geared towards mission statements, vision statements, making sure that people know where we're headed. And I think that's a basis, being from the fire department, that is so crucial for our operations, is we need to know where we're headed as a department, how we're gonna get there, and what we're trying to accomplish. I think that's the same thing with the city. Public safety, gotta have public safety. That's, fire through EMS, through the police department, the whole thing is public safety is gotta be a high priority. Making the town livable. It's gotta be a livable place here. We've gotta be able to actually maintain a lifestyle here. And I think we've lost some of that in the expense that's coming out of this, the whole housing market and the taxes that are coming out on our homes and everything. I think that's really kind of cutting into that. But the city council has to think about how livable Sheridan is. We have to think about the service that we're providing to the community as a whole. So how the interactions are going between the city employees and the public themselves. That needs to be professional, and it needs to be on a level that meets the expectations of the community as a whole. Okay. The city council also needs to be fiscally responsible. What do they have for money to use, and what are their goals for the future as far as the community goes? And that goes back to that livable and the environment that we're trying to provide here and maintain here. I think it's also really important that the city council, in whatever aspects they can, is maintain that tradition that is kind of the feel of Sheridan, the traditions, and learn from the past and go forward from there. That's why I wanted to get involved more into the museums, and that aspect is knowing where you came from is really important to me. So.
Yes, sir, thank you. What's your view on the, property taxes?
I've heard some interesting ideas. Which one of them was kind of the cap of when you buy your home, and that's the amount that you paid for it, that's capped at that. I think that would be really crucial to helping a lot of the elderly in town maintain a living that they can keep. Because right now, I mean, I'm still working, my wife's still working, but I can't imagine being on Social Security strictly, living here and having your property taxes go up as much as they did, and then try and maintain a life here. It would be really difficult.
A lot of the seniors that are on fixed income are quite frankly getting screwed, pardon my English, but, and it's terribly unfair. And I think it's up to the city council to take that into consideration.
Yeah, as much as we can affect it. I mean, that's, the property tax is set not by us.
Well, doesn't it go back to the assessor's office here in town?
Yeah, so the county and the state, they set the rates that we pay. So, but that being said, you have power to influence the state. It all goes back to that whole constitutional thing of the open dialogue, and you're doing the will of the people. So the people need to express what their will is and keep expressing it up. How do we do that? By voting. You gotta vote. You gotta get the people in there that you want it to change through. So that's where we're gonna have to change that tax thing. And I think if it's set by the county, I think we need to start pushing towards that. I had never heard that idea before, and I was like, I kind of like that idea. It's good in that what you purchased your home for, now those people that come in are going to be set at that tax level too. So they're also going to be affected by it for the rest of their existence as well. So there's pros and cons to it.
You just kind of mentioned that you answer to the people. Okay, so we have a mayor and he answers to the people, right? But then somehow we got a city administrator who does not answer to the people. Who does he answer to, and why do we have him?
He answers to the council and to the mayor. I'll be honest with you, I thought when we voted that down, it was done, and then they changed the name and it got voted in. I was not for it, and I truly believe that, I think the first few city administrators we had agendas, and you could see where they were headed. And as a city employee, I did not feel like I was valued. We were a number. That person that's in that position has a lot of influence over what happens within the city. They really do. And I think I like the direction that Stu McCray is going with the city. I don't know, that position, you know, even to release that person from employment takes a majority, it's a 2/3 majority, I believe, or 3/4 majority of the city council to vote to get them out of there.
But that's what I'm saying.
They're not really answering to the public, he's answering to the council, and the council needs to redirect.
I was gonna say, but the council never heard from the public on it to start with, so I don't feel that they had our best interest to start with. And so
I agree with
they're
you.
just doing their own thing, they can, okay, yeah, I like what you're doing. Oh, you don't like what?
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah, I agree with you. I did not like that position being put in there, but now I have to live with it, and till we can, if we get it changed again, but it's gonna be really difficult to do. But it really is totally, that person influences so much on the city and how it goes that it really scared me being an employee on a day-to-day basis. We had no idea what was gonna come down the pike. And that, to me, is one of the reasons I did not want that position. So,
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that. I asked Jack this earlier. And Sheridan existed for over a century without a city administrator. And as she pointed out, there's a lot of power there, unaccountable to the voters. And we've experienced a council and mayor who have pretty much abdicated their responsibility that the administrator will take care of everything. So we have someone running the city who's not accountable to voters, as you'd mentioned. As you said, you'd expressed some opposition to creation of a 6-figure salary for that position. How would you vote if it came back up to eliminate the position and then have a full-time mayor instead?
there are so many things that are involved in that. There really are. Well, first of all, if you're gonna maintain that position, I think the underlying rules that regulate what that person can do need to be shored up, okay? What their responsibilities are and what the council's responsibilities are, what the mayor's responsibilities are. That's the place to start, and assigning and knowing what those are and how they're doing their job. So just how I would vote on that is really difficult to say because it's so many factors that are involved in that. I would have to look at the whole picture and how it was established.
Okay, so you're saying it depends on the devil's in the details on that.
Oh,
But in principle, does Sheridan need a city administrator to function?
no.
Okay, thank you, that's all I need.
I mean, but now that we're under it, I've seen, this is what the difference is to me is, you have a city administrator that directs everything and basically is a micromanager. The city, his staff basically can't do anything without going back to him and getting everything approved. So who's actually leading the city is that administrator, as opposed to someone who now, you know how to run your department. So the department head, they're like, you run your department, you come to me if you need assistance in something that you can't handle, and I'll help you with that. Which I wholeheartedly agree. Who knows the fire department better than the fire chief? But when the fire chief can't even make a decision without going back and asking and then going back down, I don't believe in that. I think you put those people into the department head positions for a reason. It's because they're experienced and they know the city and you rely on them. Does that mean they have carte blanche? No. But if you set it up correctly like that, the city administrators are all right. The problem is that's not the way reality is. It's all on the individual that gets in there.
Right.
And they're not accountable to the citizens directly. So to me, that is the problem with that position. The mayor is, but now it's not a strong mayor, so, you know, they're still a figurehead. They still do have some power, but they're directly responsible to the citizens because they're voted in. So.
Changing directions a little bit. Many people are referring to what's happening in Sheridan as a big housing crisis. I was just curious if you had any ideas on how to address it, the cost of a home versus the income that somebody has on average. It's just not attainable. I'm just curious if you have ideas on that to address that.
You know, my ideas are not necessarily specific. It's more of to encourage. I think infrastructure is one of those things that needs to be done to encourage some of the developers, like they did with commercial properties early on, even though I didn't agree with it. I think you need to set up an an environment where we could get a developer to come in and get more housing. The only way this is in my mind, is that we're gonna bring down the prices of houses in town. Is the market's gotta have more houses available at the low end to allow, you know, people to purchase them. And if they don't, it's not gonna bring the prices back down. The study that was done by the city and county on, you know, they were talking about bringing in, they need more high-end homes. Well, the problem with high-end homes is if someone comes in from outside and buys that high-end home, there is no movement from the bottom up. So you're counterintuitive. It's not doing what you want it to do. That's where I'm kind of encouraging, like, the apartment deal that they had earlier in the year about maybe having an apartment in the back that you could address as a half. And, you know, I don't know, I wasn't involved in the decisions or even the information and everything on that, but I think if you had, and it was showed that most of those are family, like the spouse or the son or daughter is the one living in those places. And if it keeps them here to be able to work in the workforce, I think that's important. Even if it's 4, I don't think it's ever not enough. It's if 4 opportunities for 4 people to stay here in the Sheridan and afford to live here, I'm for it. I think it'll have an effect. A little bit here, a little bit there, it'll keep rolling over. So my aspects would be this, is infrastructure to allow some of the development to go on and increase the housing opportunities here. And then the second is the code enforcement, is having the code enforcement, that relationship between the plans examiner and the citizens of Sheridan not being sent out of town and come back, that sort of thing. I think that's important. Remove the barriers that are keeping people from building. So I don't know that necessarily is happening on a residential aspect, but it definitely is on a commercial aspect. I've experienced it with people that I've been talking to business-wise. But increasing, it's just encouraging that development, that the low-end housing. My son-in-law and his wife and their 2 kids are here in town, and there's no chance right now that they could afford to get into a home. And there are guys at the department that he's been a fireman for 2 years, she's a teacher, and they can't even afford to get a home here. So once again, and I said this earlier at one of the forums, is I really think the communication between the city, the county, on the housing situation, that we need to work together and talk to other communities, find out what worked, what didn't, and get those things incorporated here and see if we can change this. And it's not gonna be a quick thing, it's gonna take time. Everybody, you know, the current atmosphere is, I need instant. Well, this is not gonna be one that's instant. It's gonna take time, so.
For anybody else that has a question, I'm gonna pass the microphone to you. Oh, thank you. Wish I thought about that earlier.
I haven't had a problem hearing you. Have you been hearing me? Okay. All right.
I'm back again, thanks. There's been a lot of conversation on electric vehicles, and I was just wondering what your feeling is for EV vehicles for the fire department.
That's funny.
That's what okay.
That's been coming up. For emergency response vehicles,
Okay.
and here's the reason I say that. When I started with the fire department, when I went over to the pump, and there were relief systems and all of that were all manual, okay? If I wanted to set the relief pressure for a line going out, I went over and I manually set it with a dial, and it was set. So no matter what happened, it was set. Now, progressed 20 years, I say progressed, now it's electronic. we show up on scene, and this has happened. You show up on scene, you put it in the pump, and the pump won't run. Why? Because there's one relay that says it needs to be tripped before you can do what you want to do. So what do? You shut the entire truck back down, restart it. Now, meantime, those guys are trying to go inside the building, and you have to start back up, and you pray that that relay kicks this time, okay? Technology isn't always the best thing, okay? The electric vehicles, and it's funny because I listened to a firefighter podcast, and this has been coming up, everyone, and there are some apparatus they're working on that are electric. I just really feel there's so many components to electrical. Well, what's the most common cause of fires in community? Electrical. I mean, that's so I see the fire service kind of looking at that. I really don't agree with it. And in fact, when we spec'd out our ladder truck, we made more manual operations on it just because of that. To have that ability to override it and continue operations.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Are you happy with that?
okay, we're gonna use this.
Okay.
Um,
You got to use it the other night, so
Yeah,
you're
right.
probably accustomed to it now.
So the general purpose excise tax, the 1 cent GPET monies, it's gonna be on the ballot again. Do you think any studies ought to be done by the city to see if those monies are even necessary? I mean, last year, and I'm a firm believer in putting money away for a rainy day. So I'm a firm believer in reserves. However, last year, 800,000 got put away. And this year, the council voted for $1 million to be put aside for reserve funds. And the city administrator said they have a budget that they're gonna try to meet, and then they said they'll never meet it. I think I even spoke at that meeting also. What do you think about the excise, the general purpose excise tax? And again, should studies be done first before it goes to voters to show here's the reasons why we need this money, or should the city learn to be more frugal and learn to live without it?
I have seen the pie charts and all of that on where that money goes, and where, how much of a percentage goes to this different aspects. This is gonna be something that, for the fire department, for me, I can tell you right now, I'm all for it. Because a lot of that, it goes into our operations of what we can purchase beyond what we have for a budget that is just operational over the year. Anything that we need to do beyond that comes out of that money. That's gonna be a benefit to the fire department. So I'm for it. I'm not for adding any other type of taxes, but that one I really, it's a small amount of what impact it has on me as a citizen, but it has a huge impact at the end. So I'm, to be short with it, I am for it. And it plays an important part, not only in the fire department, but the police department as well, I know. And we have an agreement between us that they go back and forth and talk about what their expectation or what their needs are for this next coming year. And there's a lot of discussion that comes up. And I believe they set what those needs are before the budget or during the budget process of what's going to be purchased with it. So it was a vital thing for us at the fire department. In fact, if we didn't get it, it would be interesting on where we're gonna cut. So I'm for it. So
It's creeping up on 8 o'clock, but we have time for probably 1, maybe 2 questions.
I understand.
I've had discussions in the past with actual counselors for the city, a discussion about making Sheridan a marijuana sanctuary city within Wyoming, considering the rise of recreational marijuana nationally. Essentially, the city would no longer prosecute or go after anybody for possession or usage. What are your feelings on making Sheridan a marijuana sanctuary in Wyoming?
No. Yes. All you have to do is go down to Colorado and ask them what issues they're having
We
with
just came from Colorado.
Well, okay, so then you know. I mean, the impact, and you think it's a community-wide, it's not just community, it's like specifically fire department, police, all the issues that created.
Heroin
It's
overdoses
amazing.
4 times once they legalized marijuana.
Yeah,
It was horrible. EMS was terrible.
yeah, I am not for it whatsoever.
Thank God.
Had to draw a lot of homeless into the city too, to have access to it. I saw that in Colorado Springs.
Oh, really? Yeah. You guys lived it. I mean, I just hear from, when I go to like the National Fire Academy, the guys were talking about, the atmospheric, changes that business will make in a building to promote growth of the marijuana, and they go in and it's an explosive environment. And they're just like, it's added a whole new dimension to their jobs, just on that fire service side. I can't imagine the rest of the society, so. But it goes back to what you said, the studies, I'm all for that. Getting those studies and finding out what impact has it had on that area. But that goes back to too, the 1 cent is what is it going toward? What is the impact, and are we really in need of it? I, as a fireman, I'm like looking at it and I say, yeah, I do. And we did as a fire department, we really did need that money. But they use us too, to promote it.
You do agree that, I mean, the fire service, any safety service, whether it be fire or police, I mean, they're already 5-10 years down the road at what their needs are going to be, that they're bringing to the cities, and saying, okay, add this to your budget for next year. We got this one coming up in 2024, the next one in 2025. So I mean, that's already there. Would you agree?
Yes, we do have that program going, where we know this is more than likely gonna run out on this year. Like, I was in charge of facilities, so yes, I knew that this roof was guaranteed basically for 10 years. At that point, this is what I projected what that roof would need to be replaced. How much do we need? We do that with apparatus, we do that with all of these different things.
Sure.
It's setting priorities. It's just like, and this is something that I always, when the city would come and say, you know, at the employee relations committee meetings, and they'd say, well, what do you want us to do? You know, we got to provide this and that. And I'm like, you realize your budget is just like my budget at home. Mm-hmm. I make decisions based off what I bring in for financially, and then I decide whether I can make a trip or if I can buy a new pickup. You're the same way. You decide what you're gonna spend that money on. Are you gonna make your city employees a priority, or are you gonna make the streets a priority? Whatever decision you make, that's the decision you make. But don't tell me that you can't make a decision to prioritize something. You can. You really can. And I firmly believe in, I look at that with my own life. I mean, my budget is my budget, you know? What can I live with? So.
I have one last question,
Sure.
since I have the microphone. I like to ask this of all the candidates that we have. If you have some sort of a faith, if you wouldn't mind sharing it and what role it plays in your life.
Okay. I am a Christian. I am Missouri Synod Lutheran. I was raised Missouri Synod Lutheran, and I have maintained that through my entire life. God is number one in my life. My family is close second. Very close second. But God plays an integral part in my life. I'm a church goer. I'm trying to get more involved with the church now because I'm out of the fire department. I have a little bit more time. So I just joined the trustees and been working in there. And obviously it has played a role in my life in the past too, because getting involved in Martin Luther Grammar School was a big thing. When we started that school, it was a challenge, and it was a big undertaking by the church itself. But it's been rewarding, and it's slowly building. So it's been an important part for my parents, and I know Sharon would be able to tell you that. I mean, my family, it's very important to us, and being a Christian and treating others. I am, you treat others the way you want to be treated, and that's the way I am. So.
Appreciate that. Okay, well with that, we are at 8 o'clock, so we're gonna let everybody go who needs to go. Greg, do you have a couple minutes if people wanted to ask you something just outside of?
Sure. Thank
Okay.
you for this opportunity.
Well, I appreciate your time.